when I look at it in retrospect, I can say there were a lot of things I wanted my dad to be and do, but there were a lot of things that my dad gave me to make sure I could do for myself. And his philosophy was, if I give you what you want, you won't have what you need. If I give you what you need, you can get what you want for yourself.
This is Dadography, a podcast with stories and insights on fatherhood from dads around the globe, dedicated to providing you with the tools and tips to become a better dad. I'm your host, Corey Wood. Welcome once again to Dadography. My name's Corey Ward. I'm your host, and today I have the opportunity to have a conversation with a very interesting father, Mr. Ernest Turpin, known by family and friends as Cisco. Cisco, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited about being a part. This is an opportunity for us men to talk to men about fatherhood.
Definitely, man. It's always good when we have an opportunity to kind of lean in on fatherhood and give some contemplation to what it's all about, the benefit that it can bring to the world as a whole, but also the benefit it can bring to us as individuals and also to our children. So with that said, man, let's jump right into it, man. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself so that our listeners can get a chance to know you a little bit better, man?
My name is Ernest Turpin. Nobody knows me as that. Everybody knows me as Cisco. I was born, raised in Charles City, Virginia, in the country. Two younger sisters, and I have three daughters and one stepson. I work for the Federal Aviation Administration. Been divorced twice, and currently just engaged in a exclusive relationship. So that's
It's
kind of
interesting, man, that just kind of hearing a little bit of your bio there. You said you've got three girls, a stepson, twice divorced, and now engaged. Obviously, if you're working with federal aviation, I would only assume that could prove to be a taxing job. So balancing it all, I'm assuming, has been a challenge, and it sounds like you've had some challenges. And I'm looking forward to understanding you as a father in those different areas. But before we get there, maybe you could tell me a little bit about your dad.
my dad grew up in an era that men did things differently. They didn't really consult with how you felt or what you thought. They had an idea of what they thought was the way to go, and they did that. Me and my dad, uh, we were at loggerheads for a lot of years. I mean, I respected him. He was a great provider, but I didn't understand some of the ways he made his judgments. So, and I was always the oldest and kind of more closer to my mom, which was good in a way. Taught me a lot of things about women. It really helped me to understand, how daughters and women think. But I think that separation between me and my father was one that left me with a lot of blind spots. I guess I was kind of judgmental on him on actually him and mom's relationship. Really wasn't my place at the time, but and I grew past that. And so as we got older, as I became a father and as I raised children, we began to really talk and really just say, hey, what time do we have left? How can we be? And the last 10 years of his life, man, he really became my best friend. Kind of explained a lot of things to me that I didn't understand. And I saw his point of view and he saw mine. When I look at it in retrospect, I can say there were a lot of things I wanted my dad to be and do, but there were a lot of things that my dad gave me to make sure I could to do for myself. And his philosophy was, if I give you what you want, you won't have what you need. If I give you what you need, you can get what you want for yourself. I didn't
Okay.
understand that then. And now it makes so much sense to me. And I'm glad toward the end of his life, in the last 10 years, we spoke to each other, not
Mm,
at each other. And we based our relationship on how me and him related, not what I thought about how he treated others or secondhand things. My dad was always pushing school, which I thought he was extremely hard on me and didn't give much explanation. And later on, he said, I knew you were going to be okay. but the things that I wanted to give to you were the ability to do for yourself, think for yourself. And in the end, it meant so much to me. I didn't really understand it till later on in life. That was his philosophy. And, we were to the 11th grade. He got a job. Well, he worked hard and played hard, but that was the culture then. So
Right,
much that
right.
I faulted him for personally. I didn't understand the culture in which he grew up. And I didn't understand, by the standards of that day, he was doing good. And I was judging him bad based on what I thought it should be. Life will teach you. Life will humble you if you're willing to learn. I had an interesting conversation with my youngest daughter.
Hmm.
Me and her took a trip to Virginia, and her and my sisters talk about how things were when we grew up. And she kind of said to me, she said, "Well, Dad," she says, "your life growing up really wasn't that good, and you never said anything to me about it." I said, "Well, how was your grandfather to you?" She said, "He was the best grandfather in the world. That was his and your relationship. I have no right to interject my experience as a child and father to your experience with as a grandfather and a granddaughter."
That's a heavyweight decision, man. I mean, because unfortunately, a lot of times people do kind of project their relationship onto the relationship that the grandparents may have, you know? So
Yeah,
the fact that you were able to recognize the probability of that happening and then making the conscious decision not to do it, that's a loving father. That's some real contemplation about the emotional and psychological well-being of your child and how you could possibly affect their life based
yeah.
on you projecting your relationship on them. So yeah, that's a heavyweight decision, man. I got to tell you, if you had, I guess, describe your fatherhood style, how would you do that? How would you summarize it or put it into words?
Of course, as you father, how you start off and how you in later years, because you got more experience, you understand things more. I think I'm more of a listening, trying to understand why you feel or think the way you think, but also trying to explain my decision. When given opportunity, the things that like respect is very large to me. I can deal with you not agreeing, but you must be respectful in how you talk to me. And I'm going to be respectful, as a human being when I talk to my children. And there are many times that I went back to my children and say, "Hey, I made this decision based on what I thought. I was wrong. I'm not afraid to apologize when I've missed it." And I asked my children to do this, Corey, as a father. I said, "Do understand every decision that I make for you, I'm making that decision based on what I think is right. Today, you may think it's the right decision. 5 years from now, you may think it's the wrong decision. 10 years from now, you may think it's the right decision again. All I asked of you is grant me that I did the best I could with the information that I had, trying to do the best for you." And that's all anybody can do. And if I'm wrong, I will admit it. I can be wrong and apologize. But whether I'm right or wrong, the responsibility of fatherhood is all on me. So grant some grace with that, understanding that he's doing the best he can. And I promise to do the best I can. I won't withhold anything good, but I won't give you something ahead of time that's going to destroy you at the same time. So I guess my style is kind of listening, caring, and then if I have to make a decision that you don't agree with, I'll make it.
You got to be able to make the decision that's not the popular vote.
Right.
Uh, there's a tendency or a need to be able to make an executive decision at time.
You have
But
to.
the good part though, Cisco, is that you're very mindful of your children's being. In other words, their existence, that they have feelings, they have thoughts, they have opinions. And so it sounds like even as you ask them to be respectful, it sounds like you're very respectful of them as well.
I've had some of the most insightful, challenging conversations with my children where they've asked me questions about things I said or thought or believed. and kind of pointed out, am I living up to what I said? Just questioning me to the sense, say, Dad, what about this? Or Dad, what about that? And I've grown so much from those conversations because I was willing to listen. Your children know you better than anybody.
Hmm.
And they're around you. They see you. They know your moves. Even they watch you and look at you, even when you don't think they are. So that's been a blessing to me, also.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it's been a blessing, man. I mean, the fact that you're listening. Let me ask you this: have you given any consideration to where the root of that style of fatherhood comes from? I mean, considering what you just told me your father was like.
My uncle said something to me. My uncle Beverly said something to me when I was a kid. He said, "Cisco, remember what you don't like as a kid. Remember how you feel when certain things happen. And when you're an adult, do it different. You may end up doing it the same way that what you don't like right now." So I try to remember my feelings and thoughts on how I felt, and I try to incorporate them and ask the question to say, "What do
Mm,
you think about this?" or "How do you feel about that?" So I've always been a person that thought about things
okay.
and just and ask myself, well, maybe I should ask the question. That doesn't Asking your child a question does not lessen your authority. It actually gives you a loyalty from them that they know that you care, and they're way more willing to understand and go along with what you say because they know that you took time to even consider them.
I mean, it goes back to what you said. A lot of listening. It seems like the listening is a pivotal part of being able to position yourself to build a relationship with your children. With three girls, though, what was your biggest challenge, or is your biggest challenge?
Having daughters helps you understand being in a relationship because sometimes they want you to solve their problem.
Hmm.
Sometimes they want you to listen to them and don't say anything. And sometimes they just want to know that you're there or what do you think, and actually just for them knowing that a father or a person that a protector provider is there for them frees them up to be more independent, more vocal. They have a sense of who they are. And I think that's been the beauty of watching them become young women and how they have their own personality. Each one you will have a different relationship with. And each one, as you have a 34-year-old, a 30-year-old, and a 17-year-old. Well, my parenting style at 59 is a lot different than it was at 34. I've
Right,
got
right.
25 years of experience of what don't work. The running joke with my youngest daughter is, you're getting the best version of my parenting skills. You're getting dad 3.0.
You've made enough errors. You've been constantly correcting, and so now at this phase, she's getting this, as you said, 3.0 version of you. Okay, so Cisco, you mentioned earlier that you've been divorced twice, and now you engaged. So obviously, you've been involved in all of your daughter's lives from day one to this day. And so, having gone through those different phases, obviously, your daughters, I'm assuming, in relationships or have been or will be. How do you think you've dealt with presenting relationships on the tail end of having, just experienced some relationship challenges
Yeah, and
yourself?
that's one of the things as a man and as a father, you want to be able to say, you want to be an example. So when the decision came to divorce or not divorce, that weighed very heavy in my decision. And it's one of the things that you really got to think about. But then you also got to think about is staying in something that is not working or could get absolutely worse. Is that better for them to see that, or it's better to say, what's happening? It's time to change and to present that to them. And one of the hardest things that I've had to do in my life was to tell my older two daughters and my younger daughter that the family that they knew were born into was going to no longer be.
Mm,
That weighed heavy on me. as a man, when a family or is separated or breaks apart, you feel a weight and a responsibility
Hmm.
that's different than most people feel. It doesn't matter who did what. You made a vision for your family and it's not coming to pass. Before you make a decision that's drastic, and it's a drastic decision, you have to ask yourself, did you pursue every avenue you could before you stepped away? And I also had to explain to both of them that I'm your dad. I'm your day for day dad until I die. I'm never going to not be in your life. My older two daughters, I had full custody of them, and my younger daughter, I have half custody. That was not negotiable. Me having a problem with that mom and deciding not to be in her life was never an option. I'm going to be a dad every day. I enjoy being a dad. So, um,
So would you give the encouragement to dads who have faced, are facing, or will face relationship challenges? Would you encourage them to stand firm and like have some sort of a non-negotiable area
yeah,
to
I
reiterate
think
after you, that as it relates to being around, spending time with, communicating with, and raising the kids?
no matter what happens, if you're absent from your child's life for whatever reason that you and the mom or legal or other things are going on, the child doesn't know that. The child thinks they're the problem. They think that their family broke up because of them, or that you don't love them no more because you're not with their mom. And so you can speak for yourself and you won't have other people speaking for you. They won't have
Mm,
interpreting your actions. Speak
right,
for yourself, speak to your children, let them know that you love them, and put forth effort to be there.
right,
And if you have to spend money to make sure that it's short legally, do it right, do it legally. That way, it's not at the whim of somebody else's decision whether you will or won't see your children. You have to make sure that you establish your rights and what's important to you concerning your children. The court system can be pretty rough on men, but if you show up and you present an image of you going to be there and you going to do what you're supposed to do for your children, the
right.
court can really work in your favor. But you have to do it. You have to show them that you want to be there. No discouragement from a woman was ever going to separate me from loving my children and being in life. No discouragement was ever going to do that.
That's a lot of food for thought. I've had challenges as it relates to my youngest son, and the family and I were contemplating going to the States for a while, in which very likely, man, listening to your advice, that's probably a foot I need to put forward as I face challenges with trying to maintain communication. And it's not an unwillingness on my part. So I know earlier you mentioned that you have your three girls, and so you've also mentioned how they call you for advice on parenting. So what was that like? I mean, you raise your girls from little children, and then at some point they're in a relationship and you find out that you're going to be a grandfather. I mean, what was that emotion like?
It was different in the sense that, I've always envisioned family and grandkids. I knew I was going to have them. I was excited for them, but also explain to them the priorities. There's a priority shift now. You doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. Well, that's changed now. You're not the number one priority anymore. If you're going to bring a child in this life, you have to make sure that they are the number one priority.
Hmm.
You can't make decisions null and void of them. So you have to consider how it affects the child. What's going to be best for my child, and that's I think that's part of the social contract when you have children, that you are saying I'm willing to shift my priorities in my life to accommodate, to make sure that my child has what they need, and then me. As opposed to when you just single or just married couple with no children, you can do what you want, go where you want. So I said that to them, and I also let them know that you're my child, and that's my grandchild. The only influence or authority I have in that child's life is granted to me. I will not tell you how to raise your child. I will give you advice when I think it's best. If I feel that child's endangered by you or your behavior, I have no qualms with stepping in and ensuring the safety of my grandchild. Other than that, I will mind my business. When you need me to do something, let me know. Or you
Hmm.
want my advice, let me know. I respect you as the parent of your child.
Earlier, you mentioned that you have a stepson, and what was that like? What was it like raising a son that wasn't biologically yours? I think a lot of times stepfatherhood, for lack of a better term, doesn't get addressed as much as, even on the show we talk about being a father, being a good dad, and generally speaking we're talking from the biological standpoint. But obviously there are a number of dads out there that are not the biological father. Tell me a little bit about
Eh,
what it was like to raise a stepson.
Well, I think I had some experience in the area because I raised my nephew and my niece on my through my first marriage from the
Okay,
time
I
they
didn't
were
know that.
teenagers. So they came and I'm like, okay, if you're in this house, I'm gonna treat you like my child. I want to feed you, take care of you, and no different. And so I did that. So I had experience. That wasn't a problem for me. Now, mind you, their parents really weren't in our life. So their childhood with me, and the parents were away in Connecticut. So I didn't have to interact with anybody on how I raised them. Me and my first wife, we raised them together. When I got married the second time, I think the stepson was like 5 or 6. It's pretty young. And so I got to meet his dad, and I talked to his dad. I'm like, a couple things I want to establish with you. The first thing I established with the dad was respect. I said, I will respect you as a man. I will treat your son like my son. I'm open to talk to you. I'm not interested in being the good dad and the bad dad. I'm interested in being the best dad we can for my son. And I call him my son. And I
So
think
how did that conversation go? I mean, that's a conversation from another planet. I mean, usually when people think of the communication wavelength between step parents, it's not the best of vibes. It's usually, oh, go ahead and go outside. I don't need to see him, and I don't want to talk to him. He don't need to talk to me, or just this kind of, you're both individuals almost elephants in the room,
right.
respectively.
I think anytime men deal with men and they give each other respect and they say to each other, if you want to know what I think, ask me. And if I want to know what you think, I will ask you. That takes this child out of the picture. That takes the baby's mama out of that picture. It takes everybody out of the picture. Now you have two men that have started off in respect, talking to each other. That can only be good. That can
Okay.
only be good. And honesty with each other. And I think after that conversation, they laid the groundwork. And I remember the conversation like yesterday. And one of the things that I brought up was like, listen, let's be honest. You prefer if you didn't have to deal with me concerning your son, and I prefer if I didn't have to deal with you concerning your son. That's just real. Yeah, but
Right.
but we're
Right.
gonna put the child first, and let's put that aside. Let's acknowledge it, understand it, and move on. And I think that was I look at that, and I think that was one of the foundations for one of the best relationships I've had outside of the stepson. But it was based in respect and understanding and saying, if you got a question, ask me. Because a lot of times things are misconstrued from child to child. The mom may be mad at the baby's the daddy and tell the stepdad this or whatever. It can be a whole bunch of other foolishness can happen. But when men talk to men in front of each other, that cuts through all of that. And now we're dealing with raising a child. One of my great memories, it was a flag football game in Orange Park, and
Okay.
our son was playing, and he was the running back. He's fast, talented athlete, talented, and he was running down the sideline for a touchdown, and me and his dad were running on the outside of the thing to the thing as he ran for the touchdown. and we're jumping up and hugging each other like kids. That's how we are. That's I consider it a blessing. That's amazing. That's amazing when I think about it.
Hey guys, this is Corey, host of the Dadography podcast. This episode is sponsored by and dedicated to you. Thanks for all your feedback and support. I mean that. However, if this is your first time tuning in, please be sure to subscribe. And if you've done that already and you're getting some value from our interviews with dads from around the globe, please share. Teamwork makes the dream work. Now back to the show. That's a lot of respect due to you. It sounds like you guys have been able to build. Man, it sounds like it's a friendship. It sounds like you guys have been able to build a friendship based on initially on the mutual being involved in your son's life, but also that it went beyond that, and it became a good friendship, which is awesome. The fact that you guys were able to build something despite all what would normally be challenges is really something special, man. But if you could do anything different, right? What do you think you would change? And not necessarily with, the way you built the relationship with the father, but in raising your son.
I think I would have taken time early on in my second marriage to just really address perception and what I was trying to do.
Would you have addressed that with her, with
Yeah, I
him?
think I would have addressed it. I think I would have addressed it with my ex-wife. I would have said, "Listen, here's an example. I had three daughters. They're in the living room. We sit down and watch TV. They do something or whatever. I say, hey, look, I'm upset with them. Like, don't ever do that again. Blah 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 blah." Now, the wife may not like what I said. She may not like how I said it, but she won't think it's because that's not my child. That's not his child. That's why he said that. Same situation. The son's there. He does something just same thing as the daughter did. But I say something the same way. The question becomes as a question in this with the son that doesn't happen with the daughters. The question with the son is he saying that because that's not his child? It's the exact same thing. But that question needs to be addressed and agreed upon by the parent so that that won't be a wedge issue. And children are smart. They can see what there's a wedge, and children want what they want, and they figure out how to get it. If they like, okay, mom may think this, the dad don't like me, or dad may think, that she don't like my daughters because of the way that's not her children, and that can be a wedge issue. I think more time should have been spent talking about that because at the end of the day, children grow up and go on with their life. But sometimes how you disagree in raising children, when the children are gone, there's so much damage done in the marriage that's left. Sometimes it doesn't get repaired, and sometimes it leads to resentment and it leads to ideas of favoritism and a lot of stuff that don't exist that could have been solved had you talked about it early. I think that's something I think I would have really sought to have a united front on child raising and on what they need.
That makes sense. And I would encourage dads that are participating with us today and uh, just enjoying our conversation. We'll take that and put it into the annals of their experience and notebooks so that they can avoid resentment and they can avoid having a perhaps unnecessary tension in the home. Try to have that question of is it being done because it's not his child eliminated from the equation. Is he a teenager now? Is he
Oh yeah,
a young adult
he's
now?
a
Is he
teenager
adult?
now. He's not teenage. Actually he's in his 20s now, and he has kids. He has two
Okay.
daughters, and the
Well,
relationship.
how's that relationship with him now, man?
I think that it's it's spotty. It's never contentious. Communication happens sometimes. Sometimes it don't. Um, and I'm encouraged by this, Corey. I'm encouraged by my dad's and my relationship didn't really form it till much later on. And it got that way after I had to deal with life. When life happened to me and I didn't understand and why is this that because I did that different and I did this different. I think life will humble you and make you think about how your dad did or why he did what he did. So even though it's not what I want it to be, I am standing by, waiting for it to be what it could be. And I will, and I understand. When I look at my own life, I wish it was more communication. I wish it was more hanging out. But at
Mm.
the same time, you have to let people find their way, like I found my way, and time gives it an opportunity to heal.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like you're taking it in stride, but I'm also very conscious of the fact that you're a person that's in tune with your own feelings. You don't seem to be an individual that hides behind a masquerade of masculinity and I got to be this way, I got to be that way, I got to be super tough, etc. So, I'll ask you this: does it hurt? I mean, the fact that
Oh, it does. There's birthdays, there's Father's Days, there's other times when I was like, hey, I would like to hear from you. But it's one of the one thing. It's not just the one thing, but other thing is that I've often able to talk to his dad about my feelings and
right, right.
how it bothers me or how I view it or what should I do. And he's been a resource that I could say, hey, listen, tell me what you think of how I'm handling this. Do you think I'm being fair? Do you think I'm being equitable? What? And we've had that open communication,
Hmm.
so we've actually been a support system for each other during extremely rough times in each other's life that you don't normally do. Sometimes dealing with my son, our son. Sometimes dealing with relationship dissolution of marriages, other things that have happened. We've been there to be able to talk. So that's been an incredible asset.
Yeah,
That
earlier you mentioned you used a term, you said a blind spot. I'll tell you what, Cisco, you sharing that with me, the idea that the dad and the stepdad would be a support system for one another as they watch the son become a man. Wow, that came out of left field, man. I didn't see that coming. That was really a blind. That's a unique friendship. I got to tell you. What you mentioned that it was mutual respect that eventually what was the foundation, right? And you mentioned earlier that sometimes you guys communicate and don't necessarily speak about the son. So then, how did that evolve, and hence ultimately end up being a support system for you as a father? How did that grow? That's
I
that's so.
think talking to each other,
Hmm.
mutual interests. We're both readers. We're both people that think about stuff, ask questions. We both have a lot of things alike that you were just in conversation and ideas and I think that's one of the things that once you started saying, okay, once you have trust, well, respect, followed respect came trust, and once you have trust and respect, naturally there'll be love, and I think because we respect each other, we grew to trust each other based on our what doing what we said we were going to do. Then there was a love, like this is a brother, man. This dude right here, man, it's one of my five most influential relationships in the world. And I think that once those things were in place, it just grew. Just hanging out, sitting down, having a cigar, talking about life and what do you think about laughing at ourselves, laughing at our mistakes. No
Okay.
judgment. It's been times where I've had him talk to my daughter about some things. That's not my thing. He might know. But when we
Right.
begin to trust each other with each other's children and each other's family members, it was obvious that this was way bigger than just a stepdad relationship. It had its own life and continues to grow to this day.
Mhm. Well, I tell you what, it's real good to hear about you as a father, to get to know you as a father. Really good to hear about your friendship with the stepdad. Really good to hear about lessons that you have accumulated over the years of parenting, being a father, and now even to being a grandfather. It's interesting because I think we've had conversations similar to this before, but perhaps what is most unique and that may in fact encourage our listeners today is for those listeners to know that I'm actually the biological father of your stepson. I'm actually the biological father of your stepson. So this is the first time for us on a public platform to be able to share some of our insights and experiences in fathering remotely and up close the same son. Very unique. But I do want to take that opportunity and being on this public platform to say, man, I sure do love you. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for the contributions that you've made to me as a friend, me as a father, and the way you stood in the gap when I wasn't able to be there. So I'm grateful. I'm really, really grateful, man.
It's been a blessing to me, man. It's it's something that was unexpected, man. But it's I smile. The running joke is when I see your number pop up, I'm like, hey, man, that's my boy right there. That's, and we could talk about anything. We could talk about great successes. We can talk about great failures. We can talk about great pain. We called each other when life was real heavy and real low, and encouraged each other, and just say, I'm here. And it's an amazing thing. And I talk to my girls about it, and they go, that's cool, Dad. And I want them to know how it can be, how it doesn't have to be adversarial. In today's time, the probability of somebody getting in a relationship with somebody that has a kid is pretty high with divorces. And how are you going to act when you're there? You need to think about that.
Right.
I remember one time you came to town, and me, you, and Lauren had right over here. We had dinner with your family, and
Yeah, we had the place out by the lake,
yeah, an
and
alligator came coming up and beating. It was an amazing time. Lauren still talks about that. So
yeah, yeah.
I think that's a legacy thing that we're doing, Corey. That's big, and it's not. It doesn't have to be unique. If there's guys out there that have stepkids, do you know the kid's father, or do you know the kid's father through the eyes of the baby's mama? It might be wise to have that conversation with the guy in a non-threatening way, out of respect. Something really powerful could be birthed in that, and then the child knows he can't play one against the other. It'll be for his good too. So don't think you know unless you made the attempt.
I think, Cisco, what I'm hearing too, maybe on a macro level, is it's important for a father to have a support system. Obviously, you were a part of my support system. Per what you just said, I was a part of your support system, and I'm many other fathers, even on the episodes that we've had thus far in season one. We see where this support system plays a role, and that's really what I'm hoping Dadography ends up being an ongoing support system for dads. Man, some of the guys I know, Cisco, just recently had kids. Some of the guys I know have toddlers. Some of them have, elementary age children. Others have teenagers. Others have, kids that are in college. And then, of course, their dads who have children who are adults and not in college and off in their careers and are just living their life. But for sure, if you're a dad, it takes a village, man. It takes a village to raise a child. And, it sounds like at a macro level, what you're saying is it's very important for a dad to have a support system.
Yes, definitely. Because back when families lived in the same neighborhood or had uncles that came around, well, we're pretty spread out now. We've lost that community of
Hmm.
grandmas saying, "How you doing, Grayson?" And they don't see you. They see you once a year, if that. They don't get to see you on a daily. And so those things are important, that you can have somebody say, "Hey, am I tripping?" Or "How can I go about this a different way?" And I think that really sets the tone for just hearing a different perspective. It's not just black and white. Sometimes it's a little nuance, and talking it out with other people that love you. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I'm afraid for my child. Men have a major problem with saying, I'm scared and I don't know.
Hmm.
It often comes out as anger. You're angry. No, you're just scared and you don't know. And that's okay. These are the things that, in an environment of non-judgment, you can talk about. You can grow fast.
Well, I tell you what, Cisco, we're going to take those words of wisdom. I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. Dadography certainly needs more dads like you. I want to encourage the listeners to visit www.dadography.net. Scroll down to about the middle of the screen and you will see a microphone. If you click that microphone, it will start recording. You don't have to do anything special. And just give us your feedback on today's conversation. Let us know what things have proven to be of value to you from today's conversation. Also, please remember to share the podcast. Again, if the thought is from a macro level that we need a support system and it in fact takes a village to raise a child, then do us all a favor and share the show because we're looking to continue to get stories and insights on fatherhood from dads around the globe.
Wow, I have to say I did not see that one coming. Ernest, better known as Cisco, was able to establish a relationship and eventually a solid friendship with the biological father of his stepson, who happens to be our host, Corey Ward. Talk about a win-win-win situation for all there. Cisco's listening fatherhood style puts him in a great position to be mindful of how his children feel about the decisions he makes. But make no mistake, he is aware that at times you must stand firm and make the not so popular decisions not everyone agrees with. After 30 plus years of fathering and now in his version 3.0 dad style, one thing he would have done differently is spend more time with his significant other conversing about their expectations when raising a child. It is very important to seek to have a unified front with respect to this. As we mature and gain fatherhood and life experience, we can learn to change our view about the way our fathers raised us. The judgment you may have felt towards your father as a child can turn into understanding when you see it with fatherhood eyes.